Of kind of housekeeping items. First of all, Kim already mentioned it, but we'd like to thank our partners, Farm Bureau of Shenandoah County, Alliance for Shenandoah Valley, and Shenandoah County Chamber of Commerce. Without their support, this would not be possible. We'd also like to do a shout out and a thank you to the students of Central High School who are working with Hank Zimmerman to record and produce recordings for tonight's forums. And those recordings will be made available online, so those look forward to those. So let me just go through the ground rules for the evening in case this is your first forum. The forum is intended to be a civil, nonpartisan discussion of the issues, so we will all be respectful. All of our officially registered candidates were invited to participate. They are not all here, but they were all invited. I will be asking the questions, and all of the questions being asked this evening were submitted by citizens attending the session this evening. Some of the questions were combined. Some of them we probably won't be able to get to. We had a lot of questions. We have had partner volunteers who reviewed the questions only to ensure that they meet the required criteria. No questions were eliminated unless they didn't meet the criteria. As I said, we have lots of questions, so we will get through as many as we can in the time we have. The schedule for this evening is we will start with our State House of Delegate Forum. We will take a short break. We will reconvene with the Commonwealth's Attorney Forum. We will take another short break. We will reconvene with the State Senate Forum, and then we will wrap up. The format for each of the candidate forums is that each candidate will be given 2 minutes to make opening statements, and then we'll go through a question and answer session. Again, I will be asking the questions. Each candidate will have an opportunity to respond to every question. They will have 2 minutes to answer. We have timers. Our speakers will be given a 30-second warning, and then a 5-second warning, and then the red flag starts waving. So the candidates may ask for an opportunity to follow up if they happen to be the first speaker, and they will have an additional 30 seconds to answer that question. At the end of the question and answer session, each question will be given 2 minutes to make a closing statement. The order of the candidates, we had a real hard time with Bob, but for the other forums, the order of the candidates was determined by a coin toss. And so for opening and closing statements, the candidate who makes the first opening statement will be given the opportunity to make the last closing statement. We'll also rotate back and forth with questions. Bob, I think we're ready.
Okay, that's great.
So in our House of Delegates race, we have House Speaker Todd Gilbert and his opponent, candidate Bob Smith. Unfortunately, Speaker Gilbert was called to Richmond this evening on business, so we will start with our introduction and then a few questions for delegate candidate Bob Smith.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to look out into this audience, and I see, and I don't care what party you're with, I see a leader in the community, and I want to thank you for being here, because without that kind of support, democracy doesn't work. And we have a good democracy working, and we've got to be together as Americans no matter what. I don't care what the election is, we've got to be together. We don't need violence, we don't need people dismissing other people. We're all human beings. Now, I did my business. I have a lovely wife with 7 children that we've raised. We've got 24 grandchildren now and 17 great-grandkids. We have to rent the pavilion in order to be able to get a family outing together, but it works. And I'm a retired school teacher, also a retired journalist. I worked at USA Today. And I also spent a little time in the Army. I was over in Vietnam for 19 months. So whenever it came time to look around and see what's going on, I said, I think I can do a good job here. I think I can do what's right for the people in this community and for the people in the state of Virginia. And I'm prepared to do so if you'll give me the opportunity to be your voice. Because it isn't my voice, it's not a rich person's voice, somebody that's got 50 grand to pop it in your pocket. I don't have any of that kind of money, and I wouldn't take that kind of money. I'm either gonna have a chance to represent you, or else I don't care to represent anybody, because I wouldn't have a word to say in Richmond if the rich people did it all. So there you have it. All right.
Our first question for you tonight is, do you support our governor's agenda? And if yes, explain. If no, explain.
I'll tell you what, as a teacher, I sure was stunned to see that he would sit there and put a line up on a telephone line up to have a teacher put on suspension for a 2-week period while they investigate what a child in the class has said about the teacher. The child says something, goes home to the parent calls the governor, and the next thing you know, the teacher's suspended. The child has that kind of power by manipulating the parents through a system that is ridiculous. It's ridiculous to sit there and put the teacher on the line. That there is not any of that stuff that's being said that, oh, teachers are doing all these. I've never done it in my life while I was teaching for over 20 years. I've not seen any of that stuff happen in the classroom. But it's being put out there as if the teachers were some kind of propagandist trying to shape our children into things. It's such a ridiculous thing going on. This is not a conspiracy. Millions of teachers around the nation are not conspiring to change and dictate to the kids. That is the most ridiculous kind of thing that's thrown out there, and too many people have bought it, and that angers me. For the other things, I don't think he's done enough with it in terms of the environment. I don't think that we've got enough going on for helping our veterans, for our homeless. The agenda of giving money away to the rich is not the answer. We've been doing without for so long that we need to take that money now and use it and put it to good use in the community with the children, for the homeless, and for those individuals that are just struggling to get by, especially after the pandemic. So.
Our next question.
Sure.
Gun violence is a national disgrace, and the Second Amendment is not protecting lives of children. What will you propose to reduce gun violence?
You know, if a 6-year-old can walk into a classroom and shoot a teacher, I have to say that there's some need for some kind of legislation to go ahead and take care of a situation like that. Parents have to be responsible, or anybody has to be responsible, to make sure that we don't create the situation where we can have this violence. I wouldn't let a 10-year-old get behind the wheel of a car and drive it. There has to be training, there has to be a license for it, there has to be any other thing that we can find that will keep the incidence of so many people dying year after year after year. No, I don't want to take the guns away. I love having the guns around. I was using the M60 machine gun when I was over in Vietnam. I used to teach at the Reston at South Lakes High School in Reston, and I was part of the team that would teach the children how to sit back on the rifle range and how to use the weapons. Weapons are just fine. It's just that we just can't say Second Amendment, there's zero laws we can make about it. We need to make at least some kind of regulation that's going to work towards eliminating the problem that we're seeing when children can shoot themselves because somebody didn't lock up the gun right. Somebody just left it laying around and children had access to it. It's just not something that we need to tolerate. And to that extent, that's what I believe in. The Second Amendment needs to be solid. Everybody needs to have the right to be able to keep and bear arms, but we've got to have it done with responsibility. And this business of saying no laws is the same thing as saying let's just close down the government because we don't want to follow any law. That's not right. We have to do it this way. Thank you.
And Bob, our last question. If elected, how will your family impact your decision-making process?
Oh, they'll be glad to come down and fill the halls whenever we get down in the legislature. They'll be saying, look, there's my grandpa. No, they'll be influencing me as the children always have. I listen to kids because kids have a lot to say. We got a bunch sitting in the back over there. They don't really see themselves having a voice. We don't allow the kids to have enough of a voice, and there's plenty of them here that do have a lot of good things to say. And I would sit back and expect that from my family as well as I would from the kids in the community. I've been a teacher. I love kids. I do whatever I can for kids, and I would make sure that they get to have the things that they need and their chance to say what they feel they need to say. So.
Thank you. All right, Bob, you now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
Okay, so let's see. There's so much that can be said about this election, but I do know one thing, that it's a sad commentary that we have to have elections that require thousands upon thousands of dollars so that people can go up there, because only the rich are the ones that are able to be up there to represent us. Only the rich, those that can get lots of money and buy the candidates and put them into place so they can make the laws. They don't care about your laws. If you want to get $250,000 from Dominion Energy, then who are you going to sit back and follow whenever it comes time to vote on a rate hike? You think it's going to be you? It sure is not. It's going to be for the rich. So the rich are running this country now and not us. That's the big thing I have to say about it all. We don't have our democracy the way we need to have our democracy. We have an oligopoly that's sitting back controlling all of us, and there isn't a whole lot more we can say unless we start taking actions to make sure that we don't keep putting the same people in office. They get in office and they do the same thing again, all for the rich people. How many out here are rich? Are you going to give me $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 so I can have a competitive campaign? No. But you're going to sit and vote the same way all the time without even paying attention, and that's what you're going to get. You're going to get the same thing again. Didn't they teach you that? Put your hand on the stove, you get burned, right? Do it again the second time. Is that what we're doing? Yes, we're burning ourselves. We're not sitting back here and taking care of what we need to take care of, and that is to have a real democracy, get rid of the money that is involved in all the elections, and we'll be able to say we got a democracy again. Thank you very much, by the way, for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for being here. We will take a short break, mix things up here, and so stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
That works nice. I love this.
Ready?
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue. I had a card in my hand that I totally ignored. We do have some folks in the audience who are running unopposed or who are in positions unopposed, and I'd like to recognize them. We have Carla Orts, Clerk of the Court. Missy Hockman, Commissioner of Revenue. And Cindy George, our Treasurer. Sorry about that, ladies. Skipped right over the card. So we will now continue with our Commonwealth's Attorney Forum. Our candidates tonight are Elizabeth Cooper and Amanda Wiseley. Same format. Each one of them will have an opportunity to make a 2-minute statement, opening statement. We will have about 45 minutes for a question and answer session. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer each question, and then we will have a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. By coin toss, Elizabeth will make the her opening statement first, and that will allow her to also make her closing statement last. So, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Hello. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I think this is a really important part of an election, is hearing from the candidates. So thank you for coming and hearing from us. So I'm Elizabeth. I am a local native here of Shenandoah County. I went to Central High School, graduated from James Madison with a degree in philosophy, went on to law school up in Pennsylvania, and I have been practicing predominantly here in the Valley since I graduated from law school. A majority of my work has been with children. I was trained as a guardian ad litem, where I represented kids in cases that were having to do with foster care, custody cases, children that were delinquent or truant. So I did a lot of work with the families and the youth in our community. I also worked part-time in Page County as a prosecutor for 2.5 years when I first started working, which is a wonderful experience. I learned a lot. I worked predominantly in the juvenile domestic relations court, but also got some jury trials in early on in my career. And then the last 18 months I've spent in Culpeper County, and when I went over to Culpeper County, I started in the general district court and quickly went into the juvenile domestic relations court, just with my experience and background. While I was in Culpeper, I tried a couple jury trials, prepared several more jury trials, and dealt with a lot of cases from the night of the incident until the end in my 18 months I was there. The reason I'm running in Shenandoah County today is for a Commonwealth attorney is because I do believe we need better representation in keeping our community safe. I do believe we need to focus on our drug crisis, which includes both the fentanyl and methamphetamine that we're seeing on our streets with regularity. And I do think we need to have a better communication with law enforcement and with the victims of crime here in the county. So that is why I'm running for Commonwealth Attorney.
Good evening. I'm Amanda McDonald Wiseley. I've been the Commonwealth Attorney here for 12 years. I will start out by saying that it's dangerous and maybe not wise to tell 2 lawyers who go to school and learn how to bill by the hour. They can only talk for 2 minutes. It's not what we're trained to do, so that can be difficult.
Not at all.
So I, too, am a native. I grew up in Strasburg, went to UVA undergrad, University of Richmond for law school. I was the 3-time winner of the Judge Elliott Marshall Scholarship, which required that upon graduation, I return to the community and work here. And obviously, it's where I love, and I've lived here and practiced here ever since. I'm hoping no one out there does math, so I can tell you I've been a lawyer for over 20 years, and I don't want people to count that up and realize how old I am. I think that this race comes down to a few things, but most importantly, experience. I have done nothing for the last 12 years except for prosecution. I've handled everything from expired inspections, hundreds of those a year, all the way up to homicide. One of the things that I'm most proud of is I worked with Judge Black to actually develop drug court, which just started. We put our first defendants in on August 29th of this year. We're 3 weeks into drug court, and it's extremely important to handle or to try to help people. Incarceration doesn't fix the drug problem, so we're trying something new. And again, it's just something that I'm extremely proud of to help families and the community deal with such an epidemic. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now begin the question and answer session. And so the first question, Elizabeth, is you'll
Sure.
start.
It doesn't matter to me, but sure.
Please list the top 3 issues facing your office and what solutions do you have for them?
So I think this is a really good question. And I think because it speaks a lot about why I'm running. So the top 3 issues that I think that are facing the office of the Commonwealth Attorney have to do with, first and foremost, here in Shenandoah County is prioritizing victims and survivors of crime. So everything in the Commonwealth Attorney's office, when you're in that office, it starts with communication. It starts with communication with law enforcement, it starts with communication with victims, it starts with communication with witnesses, it starts with communication with other agencies, with the Board of Supervisors, it starts with being able to communicate. That is a huge problem here in Shenandoah County. I've heard this from the community at large, that they would like to see better communication in the office, so that is one of the most important things that I will be prioritizing if elected. The second one would be the drug crisis. As everybody knows, fentanyl is coming across the border in droves right now. I happen to be in an office over in Culpeper where we had a lot of work with ICE and people who were coming into the country and people who were coming into our community that were committing crimes that were there that were second and third offenders. You know, understand being in our community, but if you're going to be in our community and you're going to commit crime, then you got to go. So that's a big deal. And the other thing would obviously be putting bad guys away. There's room for some leniency on first-time offenses, but after that, citizens deserve justice. Citizens deserve for our streets to be safe, our communities to be safe. Shenandoah County is a great place to live and raise a family, and I want to keep it that way. So I think those are the 3 important topics to work on in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office.
Thank you. Amanda, please list the top 3 issues facing your office and what solutions you have for them.
So the top 3 issues facing my office, one, there is a staffing issue. I don't think it's any secret. Unfortunately, it's a crisis across the Commonwealth, that every office is shorthanded. I've been fortunate that we now have over 110 years of experience with the attorneys that I have in my office. That's more than the majority of prosecutors' office of my size can say. So second is, I would say, having the knowledge, not just the experience and having the staff, but having the knowledge to be able to prosecute cases. There are many things that come up that sometimes are unexpected. And knowing how, when you get that phone call in the middle of the night from law enforcement, having the knowledge and experience on how to handle it and how to help them when they're on the scene. And the third thing, I would say, that is affecting our office and the solutions is that we're dealing with, for Shenandoah County, it's a methamphetamine crisis. 3 years ago, fentanyl was our #1 issue. Now it's methamphetamine, and working with law enforcement agencies and working with community partners to help not just, again, the defendants that we see in our courtroom, but their families. I'm not sure if people realize, but methamphetamine users, from the first use, their frontal lobe starts getting eaten away. It takes 14 months to recover that. And those are people's loved ones, family, friends. Those are children being affected. And so again, I think fighting the drug problem and continuing to come up with other solutions is the third thing for my office. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Amanda, we'll start with you. How should a citizen evaluate the work of a Commonwealth attorney, and how have or will you meet those factors?
Okay. So I think that the citizens can look at, again, how we are confronting and facing crime that happens within the community. So as far as how they can judge, do you feel like when crime is committed, that our office is doing its best to not only meet the needs of the victim, but also the community? So I think they can evaluate it by whether they feel like that justice is being done. It's easy to look at a case and say, I'm going to lock him up and throw away the key. But you have to actually evaluate why maybe necessarily they committed the crime. I say that because I think the number one issue facing Virginians, Shenandoah County residents, is mental health. And so knowing if someone's in a mental health crisis, knowing if someone has untreated mental health issues, and that's why they turn to drugs, that's why they turn to violence, neighbor disputes, a lot of things that link back to mental health. And so I think it's looking at defendants as people, but also keeping the community safe. And that's for the citizens to decide whether they feel like that they feel safe. Thank you.
Amanda,
Elizabeth.
do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, if you could repeat
Okay.
it, thank you.
How should a citizen evaluate the work of a
Yes.
Commonwealth's attorney, and how have or will you meet those factors?
Sure, I think this is a really, really good question. So there's an analogy that I've come up with that I think is a great way for citizens to look at the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. So anybody in this room that has ever hired an attorney, when you go to hire that attorney, you pay them a retainer, usually. Let's say you pay a $5,000 retainer. And I want you to think as a citizen, or as an individual, when you retain that attorney, what is it that you expect to get from your retainer? Do you expect someone to call you back when you call them? Do you expect someone to teach you about the type of law that your issue or conflict, what law pertains to it? Do you expect someone that throughout as the case gets started and as it goes through, do you expect them to let you know, here's what's going on in the case, here's how I think things are going to work out? Do you expect them to just form a relationship with you that they continue through until the end? And at the end, do you expect them to call you and say, hey, this is what happened. I want to make sure you have everything that you need. I want to make sure that you understand what happened. The Commonwealth Attorney's Office is retained on your tax dollar. Our salaries come from your taxes that are paid in, and you have a right to expect that we will return your phone call. You have a right to expect that we will talk to you about the law that pertains to your case. You have a right to expect that your neighborhoods and streets will stay safe, because even if it's a victimless crime, for instance, if it's drug use and there isn't, you have a right to expect that your Commonwealth attorney is looking out for the community as a whole. And I will do that. I will absolutely, at all times, recognize that I am retained on your tax dollar, and I will want to serve on your tax dollar to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Elizabeth, the next question, we'll start with you.
Thank you.
Please describe your working relationship with judges, your sheriff, law enforcement, and your victims.
Sure. Thank you. This is something I already kind of touched on, and I think it's just very important to talk about communication again. So I worked initially, like I said, as a guardian ad litem in my introduction. I worked all up and down the valley. So I worked in Shenandoah County, I worked in Frederick County and Winchester, city of Winchester. I worked in Warren County and Page County as well. During that period of time, I formed very strong relationships with the judges. One of the judges asked me to actually teach other guardian ad litems about how I did what I did, because I was very passionate about my work and I spent a lot of time working on these cases, and so I came up with a model for other guardian ad litems and how to do this work. And following that, I was asked to join the best practice team of Judge William Sharp over in Warren County, and then eventually I came over to Shenandoah County and served under Judge Chad Logan on his best practices team before going to Culpeper to practice as a assistant Commonwealth attorney. Communication is essential. It is essential for this office. If you do not have good relationships, not just with the judges, but with the clerks, you've got to, there isn't any way around it. With law enforcement, you absolutely have to be available. You have to be available all the time. I worked in an office where we were on call, on a rotating call. So somebody was always on call. There wasn't just one person on call. Somebody from our office was always on call. We were always available, and we were expected to be on, to answer questions from law enforcement at any time of day. So that is a very important thing. And then with victims, I mean, I can't stress enough how important it is as a victim that victims deserve to know what is going on in their case. There's now code in Virginia that states in felony cases that they will be informed in writing. They have to be informed of what is going on in their case, and they have to be given the right to at least have a say, or at least be able to voice their opinion. The Commonwealth attorney makes the decisions at the end of the day. However, victims should be involved in all stages, as well as law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda, would you please describe your working relationship with judges, sheriffs, and your victims?
Sure. So I have a great relationship, I feel like, with the judges, with law enforcement. Never say you have a great relationship with victims, because that is more you're guiding them through the process. An example, I would say, of my relationship with law enforcement is that quite often I get called out to scenes. I think it broke today. We had a cold case homicide that someone was arrested on. Earlier this summer, I traveled with Strasburg Police Department investigators to Pennsylvania and hiked into the woods with them. I was Monday evening, Tuesday morning, I was there from midnight till 6 a.m. with law enforcement when they went out to arrest the suspect. I'm there to answer their questions. Multiple questions come up on scenes like that. And I don't sit at home on those. I'm there with them. Because they're not going to call me 100 times because they feel bad about waking me up, but they'll ask me 100 questions if I'm sitting in there. And I did, and I do. Strasburg had another homicide in July. I arrived at about 10 a.m. and left about 7 in the morning from that scene. I don't interrupt them, but I'm there to answer any question they may have. My phone rings constantly, and I'm always available for law enforcement if they need to call me. We do communicate with victims. I have a victim witness coordinator. I sit down and meet with victims, and sometimes we follow up with them after the case to make sure they have no further questions. So we do have an open communication. I have a staff member there just for that very purpose, to make sure that if I'm not available, they're available to answer their questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I briefly respond to that?
Of course. You have
Thank
30
you.
seconds.
Yes, thank you. So one of the most important parts of my campaign and as building up to run for this office has been that I very specifically reached out to law enforcement and asked them what it was they expected from the Office of the Commonwealth Attorney. And across the board in this county, that is where I heard that communication was an issue. We want an active, working relationship where we trust that someone is there, is dependably there, and that we can rely on them. Not just shows up on crime scenes, but at any time, we have someone that we can call. We have someone that calls us and lets us know how cases are going, what's happening in court. So that is what I heard from law enforcement in Shenandoah County.
All right, next question. Amanda, this is for you. Describe for us your experience with jury trials and/or murder trials.
So I've done countless jury trials. I think I did 3 just last month. There was a time during COVID where we didn't do a lot of jury trials, but I don't know that I could even put a number again on it. I mean, again, I just did 3 in the month of August. So I have a lot of experience with jury trials. I've also handled 9 homicide cases, and we have 2 pending right now. So I have a lot of experience, and unfortunately, that's the ones you don't want to have a lot of experience with. But I do have a lot of experience with those. And jury trials and homicide cases each involve so many aspects of the law, different motions, different requirements that you have to meet, that it's important to have experience and know how to handle those cases. So again, I can't give you an exact number for jury trials because there have been so many. And again, unfortunately, 9 homicide cases and 2 pending currently.
Thank you. Elizabeth? If you would please describe your experience, including jury trials and/or murder trials.
Thank you, sure. So like I said, when I was in Page County initially, this was years ago, back in 2012, 2013, 2014, I tried some juries over there and had convictions on my jury trials over there, which was wonderful. It was a great experience. Then as practicing in civil law, we don't have juries. Well, at least not in the work I was doing. Pardon me. But in Culpeper, I absolutely tried jury trials. I tried a jury trial in the first 8 months. I did another one over the summer, specifically before I left my work there. I had prepared for several jury trials. Anytime a case comes in front of me, it is my practice to always look at it as a jury trial, because that is the ultimate trier of fact. It can be in any case. And I think it's really important to take the time to think about what would the citizens of a particular area do with these facts if presented. And so any case that I was working up that I thought was going to go into the circuit court, I always evaluated it from the perspective of what would happen in a jury trial? What would a jury say about this question? What would a jury say about that question? And I think that's a really important part of being a Commonwealth attorney is paying attention to that. As Ms. Wiseley knows, in Virginia, there's a lot more jury trials now because they have separated out that judges can now sentence after jury trials. And so instead of it used to be that the jury sentenced, and now the judges can sentence. And so that's become something that's made them more popular. But I have had jury trials. I cannot say I have had any homicide cases, but I have had jury trials. I've worked around several homicide cases, I can say. And ultimately, I will say I look forward to going to more trainings. I went to quite a few while I was in Culpeper County that were statewide trainings, and I will continue to do that on behalf of the citizens of Shenandoah County to make sure that we are a well-informed, educated Commonwealth attorney for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth, the next question is for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Please describe how you are or will keep our community safe.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So this is one of the big jobs of the Commonwealth attorney, right, is how we work with other agencies to keep the community safe. Right off the top of my head, thinking about other agencies that keep our community safe, first and foremost is law enforcement. Secondly, I mean, the Department of Social Services is huge, having those relationships. And so, again, as I said, in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, it's my belief that everything starts with building relationships, and relationships start with communication. So as Commonwealth Attorney, I will prioritize building relationships with many different agencies within our community. When I worked as a GAL, a lot of the work I did was going to meetings. So I sat in meetings with teachers, therapists, parents, DSS workers, probation officers, and spent a lot of time learning to collaborate with others. We have a lot of great agencies here in Shenandoah County. We do. And do I think that they're being taken advantage of in the way they could be to be a resource to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office at this time? No, I don't think that they are. And that's something that I will continue to do. And I will prioritize that. Another piece, like I mentioned earlier, is the fentanyl problem, starting down at the southern border. And I support, Governor Youngkin is looking to punish dealers who deal to people and they end up dying. He's looking to change that, and I support Governor Youngkin in that change. Additionally, we have to have effective prosecution, and in keeping communities safe, I think also those relationships with our larger state agencies are important. I have a serious working relationship with the Attorney General for the state of Virginia, Jason Miyares. In fact, as of today, he endorsed me in this race. He's releasing that shortly, so I will maintain those relationships in the state of Virginia to make sure that Shenandoah County stays as safe as it possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda, please describe how you are or will keep our community safe.
So again, I would agree with Elizabeth on this. It's about working with law enforcement. The Commonwealth Attorney is actually the chief law enforcement official. We're in charge of all criminal investigations. So again, and that's why I try to be hands-on with law enforcement to help them, because we're working together. So in keeping the community safe and building those relationships, again, through drug court, I've built many new relationships with Valley Health, the mental health community, and all of those, and it's about recognizing there could be a problem before it happens. So I think, again, maintaining the relationships that I have with law enforcement, building new ones through the partnerships with drug court, and reaching out when you need help or have a question. I have great relationships with all of the Commonwealth attorneys around in the 26th, and sometimes if I know that they're handling a case that's very similar to one that I have here, I'll call them. They call me sometimes about something they know that we have happen here. I've helped train law enforcement, along with our law enforcement agencies. We've trained other jurisdictions about dealing with meth labs. There were years ago, we had a lot of one-pot meth labs. And Shenandoah County led the way in the 26 with trying to help law enforcement agencies know how to deal with that. Because unfortunately, Shenandoah County at that time, and now again, is the leader in methamphetamine. I went to a statewide training in 2014, and the example for cheapest meth because of the economics, high supply, was Shenandoah County. So we do also aid other jurisdictions in helping understand how to handle that crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda, could you please explain your prosecutorial approach for nonviolent offenders dealing with addiction and mental health issues?
Well, again, I think number one, I feel like I've said drug court a lot, and that's one of the ways. It's something very new to us. But I mentioned earlier that the number one issue I think facing Virginians is mental health. 90% of our addicts who we see coming through with drug use have some sort of either undiagnosed or untreated mental health issue. And so it's important to understand that. There are people that, because of drug use, have no problems leaving their family. They don't worry about their kids. And so you have to look at each individual and understand that there are other people and that they may just need help. So again, drug court is something that we've established, we feel great about, but you have to have knowledge with that as well. Different users of different drugs are affected different ways. Methamphetamine users are the slowest ones to recover. Again, 14 months. So we do try to provide different alternatives, like I said, through drug court. I also started several years ago. I think it's important to make a distinction when we talk about drug use and people that deal drugs between actual drug dealers, which are what you see on TV, and those what I call a user dealer. That's the person who only sells because they themselves are addicted. They're not the ones slinging heroin, okay? But they go to Baltimore and they pool their money with a friend, and they're the ones that bring it back. Instead of just incarcerating them, we tried to give them opportunities. We started doing different plea agreements where we had them fight the addiction through different counseling, and then it gave them the opportunity to not have to go to jail, basically, if they could beat their addiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth, could you please explain your prosecutorial approach for nonviolent offenders dealing with addiction and mental health issues?
Sure, thank you. I agree with Ms. Wiseley, this is a huge issue. It's a huge issue in Virginia. And the drug courts that we've seen popping up through Virginia are great, and I'm really glad that Shenandoah County has one now. And it's my belief that when we are looking at nonviolent first-time offenders, that we absolutely should consider preventative measures and punitive measures as well. So it isn't just a one-step process. Research shows that attempting to manage drugs in a community through punishment only is not effective. It doesn't stop the drug use. And the drug courts have shown to be quite effective. In Culpeper County, where I was, we had a drug court the entire time I was there. I learned a lot. I learned a lot how, as an office, we evaluated who could go into the drug court. Our whole office was involved in graduations from the drug court. And I thought that that was just a really important part of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office showing its support for what has become a, very destructive way of life in our communities with drugs. So I really like the Commonwealth Attorney's Office as a whole being a part of that system. And again, that starts, the piece there is that you've got to work with the resources that are already here. We have a lot of good resources in Shenandoah County, and it's making sure as a Commonwealth Attorney that you meet with those people, you know what is able to be offered, you know what is effective, and you do know the trends, and that's meeting with the Drug Task Force. That's also going to statewide things to educate ourselves on this. So I think that first-time offenders and nonviolent offenders, and then mental health courts. I know Frederick County actually has started a mental health court. And I think that that could be something worth exploring in Shenandoah County as well. One of the things I do want to mention is that there are grants throughout the state that can help with the funding of both of these, both the drug court and the mental health court. I'm going to work very hard to try and obtain grant monies to support these courts here in Shenandoah County so we're not depending on the tax dollars for them. Thank you.
That concludes our question and answer session. So we will now begin closing statements. And Amanda, you're first.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. As I stated in the beginning, I think this race is about experience. I've been, again, in this position. I've handled every type of case that can come forward. I don't need on-the-job training because I've been doing it. I've prosecuted over 800 defendants charged with drug distribution. Currently, I handle about 96%, I would say, of the circuit court, the felony cases here in Shenandoah County. It is extremely important to have someone in this position that has the knowledge and the experience. And if you doubt me, read about Portsmouth, Virginia, where their prosecutor continues to have cases dismissed because she doesn't have the experience or knowledge, either personally or to guide her offense into handling them. Most recently, they had a homicide case dismissed. It's extremely important to have the chief law enforcement official know how to handle cases in court. And over the last 12 years, I've proven that I have and that I can. Thank you.
Thank you. So first off, thank you all for coming today and listening to us speak about our platforms. Like I said, I think this is a really important part of an election, is us being able to speak. I am very experienced. My experience is not just here in Shenandoah County. I have seen prosecution offices in Winchester, Frederick. I have seen prosecution offices in Page. I have seen prosecution offices in Warren County, and now I've seen prosecution offices and worked in prosecution offices in Culpeper County. I have seen that there's a different way to do things. I have seen and worked with extremely efficient offices that don't take years to settle cases that could have been settled in much shorter amounts of time. I have seen how returning phone calls is a priority in offices. I have seen bi-monthly meetings with law enforcement being a priority in offices. I have seen working with the resources that are already in the county be a priority in the office. I love this county, and I love the people here, and I want to serve you well. And I want to impress upon you the fact that we are paid. I was paid as an assistant. Well, I was paid as an assistant through a grant, but part of the time I was paid through Culpeper County. But Ms. Wiseley's paid through your tax dollars. And when you go to the polls and you think about how you're going to vote, I really want you to see if you're getting what you think you should get for your tax dollars here in Shenandoah County. Are your phone calls being returned? Is the office being fully staffed? Is anybody reaching out to see if there's grants to fund further positions? Is there a relationship with the Board of Supervisors? Is any of that going on? I would aver it's not, and that's why I'm running, and I'm going to ask for your vote now or on November 7th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This concludes our Commonwealth's Attorney Forum. We'll take a short break and we'll come back with our Senate candidates. At this time, we will now continue with our State Senate Forum. I'd like to introduce Emily Scott and Timmy French. The order of presenting tonight was also chosen by coin toss, and we will follow the same format. Louder? Good Lord, I feel like I'm yelling. Okay, they said I need to talk louder. I'm not sure I've ever been told that in my life. There's a first. So we will follow the same format. Each candidate will make a 2-minute statement. We will go through a question and answer period. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer every question, and then they will each be given 2 minutes to make a closing statement. So I'd like to introduce Emily Scott and Timmy French. And Emily, you'll be going first with your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. This is democracy at its finest. This is a way for everybody to get their views across, meet candidates, have input. And the local legislature, that is where you make your views known. And talking to your candidates tonight, you get your questions answered. It's really what the Founding Fathers had in mind when they talked about a democracy. It's input. And yeah, we're all friends and neighbors here. And the state of politics today has become truly acrimonious. But I'd like to say that I grew up with Timmy. He's a great guy. We just disagree on how we accomplish certain things. I don't have issues with local people. I have issues with the way we want to get things done. And I really hope that this election can be civil, kind, like Timmy, like my opponent. I just feel that acrimony has very little room in politics. Just because I disagree with someone on how I want something done, does that mean that it gives me license to attack your character and make up stuff about you? Hell, I grew up in Shenandoah County. We're all friends and neighbors, right? I've disagreed with people most of my life. They've disagreed with me. I've agreed with people. So I'd like to see everybody get along. And if you have a serious question with one of my positions, ask it. See me out in public, I'll answer you. Call me at home. I don't mind answering that either. And I think also it's important to realize, I think my opponent and I agree on the basic issues, which are everyone wants a safe place to live, a good job to pay for it. They want their kids to do better than they did. But what we disagree on mostly is how do you go about that and what is the role of government in achieving those goals? So this evening, I hope maybe we can clear some of those things up for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Timmy?
Well, good evening. I feel like kumbaya. It's a pleasure to be here in front of the crowd of people. And what I've learned in this election is a lot of times when we go to things, we see the same faces over and over. It's good to see a mixture of people, of citizens of this county tonight. As y'all know, I'm Timmy French. I was born and raised here. I love this community. I love this district. I can move around this district. And I say this in not trying to pat myself on the back, but I can move around this whole district better than any other candidates that's announced that they want to run. And it's because of agriculture. Agriculture is the #1 industry in this state. There's 382,000 jobs directly related to agriculture. That's a private industry. It's an $82 billion industry. And I feel like I have the most to offer with my knowledge of agriculture. I don't need to go into that because most everyone in this room understands it. But people ask me why I'm running. It's because I love this area. I love the people of this area. I don't have anything to prove other than bringing back results. And I feel like I have a unique trait to be able to listen to a topic and not be hastily about making decisions. Make sure we hear all sides And some may call me a procrastinator, and I might be. But unintended consequences is what's happened a lot when we've done things from our government or in our life that we don't realize is going to come along with our decisions. And trying to prevent that from happening and make sure that we have a community that we're all proud of and can be citizens of is what I strive to do for us in Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now begin the question and answers. Emily, the first question is, we'll start with you. Please list the top 3 issues facing your office and what solutions you have for them.
Well, one of the top issues is a woman's right to choose. It's on the ballot this year. Glenn Youngkin has made no secret of the fact that he wants to institute a 15-week abortion ban. And that's simply not something that I can put up with. Women deserve to have their health care issues to be something that's between themselves and their doctor. They don't need government interference in such a thing. And I believe that most abortion legislation amounts to telling women they're second-class citizens. It's not about protecting babies. If Republicans cared about babies, they wouldn't attack things like free and reduced lunch and expanded Medicaid. It's about putting women in their place, and that is I feel very strongly that I'm not going to allow that to happen. Another issue that we're facing is public education. Public education is at risk. The current governor has consistently underfunded public education, and the last budget that he's so proud of actually doesn't give teachers the raises that they need. It doesn't fund the schools enough to get the support that they need. It underfunds mental health, even though he wants to go around bragging about his success in mental health. We still don't have the services that are so crucial to our quality of life here in Shenandoah County. Also, the district that we were going to represent, it involves a tremendous difference in populations. We have Clark County, we have Shenandoah County, we have Warren County, and Winchester. So there are different issues for Winchester City than there are for Shenandoah County. The city has different stuff. We have to be aware of those too. Shenandoah County and Winchester, some of their issues may be at odds, and balancing those issues is very important. Those are difficult questions. They don't have easy answers, but I would like to work on them as much as I can. The other issue I'm working on is 81. It's a problem. Everybody knows it's a problem. There's some strides being made in progress, but that's a big one.
Timmy, please list the top 3 issues facing your office and what solutions you have for them.
Well, to be honest with you, to say the top 3 problems that I know that I'm going to have to face is a little bit out there for me because I don't haven't been there and haven't been able to work on some of the problems. But what I see as the problems is in our local community, we have 3 things that I think are really affecting the success of our localities, and it is education, our mental health, and our transportation. A lot what Emily talked about. In education, I think we need to work to help on the state level to make sure that our counties, that we're not in the ways of our counties with respect and discipline in our schools so that we can get the education that is deserved. I've said many times that respect and discipline is not in our DNA. It can be taught to us, and it can be expected of us when we enter the public school system. I know a lot of people talk about school choice. I want everyone to know that I understand that can be a part of our formula of educating our youth in today's world. But nonetheless, our schools should be the school of choice, and we need to work as a community to make that happen and make sure our state gives us the resources that we need, but not in the way of our individual communities and their individual character. As far as mental health, it's I need to speed up, the caution light came on. As far as mental health, we, it's burdened our communities, and it's burdened the 2 people that were up here before, our law enforcement officers. It's wrecking our budgets. These officers are spending whole shifts waiting to hand off a citizen of our community. Could be our brother, our sister, our neighbor, our friend, or someone we don't know. We need more assistance in this. And as far as transportation, we all know that 81 is you're taking your life in your own hand when you go out there, and we need to try to start working on some kind of relief.
Thank you. Next question, Timmy, we'll start with you. Why are you the best candidate to represent the people of this district?
I think that's a pretty easy question, not to take anything away from Emily. Agriculture has put me in every one of these counties. I started out kind of, with Shenandoah County Farm Bureau, worked my way up through there, became president, worked with many issues on the state level. But all the counties in this district were the same district that I worked in for many years. Then I had a job with Rockingham Co-op where I was an agronomy field specialist, and it was my territory. In and out driveways, every county road and every community, and know the country stores. And I know that you pull into a country store and put it in park and jump out to go get a fitness drink, like I get. You bump into somebody, you see them, you recognize, hey, I recognize you, or I know you, and you stick your hand out, and what's going on in your life, what's going on? And that's the kind of person I am, that's the kind of person I'll be. Richmond will never change me, I know it. I think most of the people in this room who know me know it, and I'm going there to serve the people of this community.
Thank you. Emily, why are you the best candidate to represent the people of this district?
Well, I'm going to hand the agriculture issues to my opponent. He knows a lot about agriculture, but agriculture isn't really the only issue that we face in our district. We have a city, Winchester City. Agriculture issues are not going to be a big thing in Winchester City. We have an affordable housing problem in this community. That has very little to do with agriculture. Agriculture issues are important. I agree with my opponent. And with coming development, we need to learn how to balance agriculture and development. We want to protect our countryside, we want to protect our farmland, but we also have issues that have, there again, mental health. Mental health needs to be fully funded. We need to do something about gun violence. Gun violence is the #1 killer of small children and teenagers now. We're not doing a thing about that. My opponent has said he'd like to get rid of the red flag laws. I will defend the red flag laws. And I also feel that my experience working for Transportation Union lets me know a whole lot about transportation in this area, and I have consulted with transportation experts, and I think I probably have some real good ideas on how to fix 81. Sure, everybody knows it's a problem, but do they have a plan? I have a plan.
Thank you. This next question, Emily, we'll start with you. How do you feel about large-scale solar facilities in our district? Should large-scale solar facilities compete with agriculture?
I think the best solution is to see if we can't work a compromise. I think large-scale solar operations do interfere with agriculture, and I would like to see compromises where we don't see these enormous solar farm or solar installations. I understand solar farms is not the correct terminology. But we can encourage solar, but acres and acres and acres of workable farmland interferes with both tourism and agriculture. We need to look at alternative forms of energy. It's important for our environment, but I feel that this issue is complicated. It's not easy. It's not for or against. There's got to be a third way in order to balance the two, because balance, compromise, that's the center of our democracy. I think we can come up with something that would help both sides be happy.
Thank you. Timmy, how do you feel about large-scale solar facilities in our district? Should large-scale solar facilities compete with agriculture?
I'd like to say that I understand solar needs to be a part of our energy system. I believe in diversity. I believe in, I think we could use some small nuclear energy producing situations, some solar, some in fossil fuels. I have a real concern when we build solar facilities on our productive farmland. And also, I'm really concerned that our government has mandated that we have a certain percentage of our energy is gotten from renewable sources. But that needs to stay within localities. Different localities do not need to be the bedroom for someone else's requirements. So we have to come up with better ways for Loudoun County or Fairfax or City of Richmond or Newport News to serve and produce their requirements. This beautiful valley or anybody else's beautiful home does not need to be their mandate.
Thank you. Timmy, next question. We'll start with you. I-81 has become overcrowded and very dangerous in our district. What will you do to improve the safety and congestion on I-81 and reduce the constant backup and strain on our tax-paid emergency services?
Well, I think we know this is probably the toughest question in the room. And we recently, the budget that was put forth, there was, let's just say, an average of $200 million that was in the budget for 81. And as we all know, the General Assembly left Richmond and the budget went to where they merged it together and the governor, and what came back was no money for 81. And we also know that $200 million is not going to do a whole lot on 81, okay? But you got to start somewhere. It could do a couple bridges. And the bridges are the holdback on 81. Wherever we start, the bridges have to be done first, okay? So 1 by 1, 2 by 2, whatever we got to do, let's get started somewhere. And we need to, as citizens, have to be patient to realize this is going to be something that we deal with basically for the remainder of our life. How often have we went to Northern Virginia and haven't went through construction, okay? So we have to have relationships, and I feel like that's why I'm the strongest candidate here, because when I go to Richmond, I'm going to be able to form a relationship with everybody down there to let them know the need and the importance of 81 and the danger and what that interstate serves this state. I've told people, I've realized since I've gotten into this, out here we are in Western Virginia in this valley, we don't have politicians to the west to help with this need. If 81 went through Albemarle County and it affected all of us, we would have politicians on all sides of it working. But we're out here by ourselves. So we got to go down there and we got to get friends. And I think you all know I'm pretty good at getting friends. And we got to get these friends and we got to let them know what we need and what they need with this interstate.
Emily, I-81 has become overcrowded and very dangerous in our district. What will you do to improve the safety and congestion on I-81 and reduce the constant backup and strain on our tax-paid emergency services?
Well, one of the things we can do is we can encourage rail transportation. We can encourage freight. We can encourage freight to move from 81 to the Central Crescent. Central Crescent's good railroad, good solid railroad, and we can take some of the trucks off of 81 and move them to rail. But we have to have incentives for that. We have to encourage it. There's also the possibility, which in the long run, possibility of freight rail that runs parallel to 81. I've been told by a former Secretary of Transportation that it's probably the ultimate long-term solution to the traffic problem on 81. We can also do more in terms of traffic enforcement, speed enforcement. Some of the improvements are already in force, which are widening the lanes. Some of the lanes say they're in Toms Brook. Toms Brook is one of the most dangerous places at 81, and they're working on that. But we don't need to add another lane to 81. We need to get some of that truck traffic off the highway. And rail is the no-brainer solution. And since I work for a railroad union, I am very much in favor of rail. It's environmentally friendly. It's cheaper than building another lane to 81. And I think it can essentially benefit business as well, because reliable transportation is one of the considerations of business.
Thank you.
Can I rebut that just a second?
You have 30 seconds.
I agree with Emily, but I think as citizens, we must realize when we're out there on 81, what America has grown to expect, and that is immediate response to whatever they want. Whether it's Amazon or FedEx or whatever, you see those trucks out there, and we have to have the trucks that can supply the warehouses they're going to. Rail cannot service that need to what it's going to take to help our 81 situation. It's just, we demand too much, too quick, and rail does not work like that.
Can I respond?
Yes, ma'am, you have 30 seconds.
I beg your pardon, it does. And rail can help tremendously, especially with agricultural products. And therefore, one of the things that needs to happen is the state of Virginia needs to enforce what's called common carrier. Common carrier is the rule that says that the railroad has to pick up your load, no matter how small. Railroads like to pick up big ones, so they tend to ignore the small ones. But if we enforce common carrier, they'd come through and they'd pick up more loads that would take more traffic off of 81.
Thank you.
I could rebut, but we could go back and forth all night.
Don't mess with me, I work for a railroad.
Emily, the next question will start with you. How does your party affiliation rank amongst your priorities and why?
My party affiliation is just, it is a reflection of my values. I tend to align myself with more liberal values, which include protecting a woman's right to choose, diversity, equity, inclusion, which our governor has decided to remove from the government website. I think that we should be thinking in terms of policies that help everybody, and Democrats do that. Democrats also believe that government can help. And government doesn't have to be the enemy. The government can work for you in terms of expanded Medicaid. How many people are enjoying the benefits of that? How many people are enjoying the American Health Care Act? There are many ways that government can help. It doesn't have to be the enemy. And I think Republicans would like you to think that government is really not working in your favor. But in reality, government does work well, and Democrats will let you know that. Social Security, Medicare, all successful government programs.
Thank you. Timmy, how does your party affiliation rank amongst your priorities and why?
Well, I've been a part of the Republican Party my whole life, and I could say that, I pretty well agree with where it is today. I may not be as staunch on some issues as some other people within the party are. I believe that for a person to succeed, they must have pride in themselves and have their own goals. I believe that our government can't make us happy by handing us more stuff. So I basically feel that the Republicans are trying to strive where we have a community that small business is successful, and we award those people by not overtaxing them, mandating things on those, and that is what will make our communities succeed. But somehow or another, we must turn the tide and get our citizens, our fellow neighbors, our family members to have pride in themselves, to take care of themselves, and wake up each day wanting to take the world on and make it a better place for them and their neighbors.
Thank you. Timmy, this next question will start with you. Gun violence is a national disgrace, and the Second Amendment is not protecting lives of children. What will you propose to reduce gun violence?
I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. Right now, I don't know of any proposal that I've seen that I feel like I need to get behind. I feel like our gun violence is a mental health issue, and we need to work on making sure we can fund these situations and help these individuals. I just don't believe the gun is, I do believe the gun is part of the equation. And when we sit down to talk about it, it doesn't need to be excluded. But I just don't, I haven't seen any legislation that's going to change what we're dealing with that I can get behind at this point for myself.
Thank you. Emily, gun violence is a national disgrace, and the Second Amendment is not protecting lives of children. What will you propose to reduce gun violence?
I think it may be time to consider an assault weapon ban. I don't understand why anybody needs an assault weapon, or what your gun people would call a semi-assault weapon. Why does anybody need an AR-15? I don't understand. You're not going to deer hunt with an AR-15. You really don't have to protect your property with an AR-15. I can't see why banning such weapons is going to actually interfere with anybody's Second Amendment rights. There are other things that we have a First Amendment right called freedom of speech, but you can't say everything you want in public. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. So why is any kind of restriction on the ownership and use of firearms considered a violation of the Second Amendment? It doesn't make sense. I think that when you're looking at protecting our children, keeping them safe, when gun violence is the #1 cause of death with our teens and young people, we really need to look at gun safety issues and actually considering an assault weapons ban. I feel that part of the problem with assault weapons, I feel that we need for people to start having more faith in government. I think when government actually becomes something that people can trust, then maybe perhaps they'll be willing to understand that there has to be a ban on assault weapons.
Thank you. This concludes our question and answer session, so we'll now begin closing statements. And Timmy, you're first.
Once again, I'd like to thank you all. I want to point out something. We have a group of kids here with us. I'm going to take a little bit of my time. If I go over, you're going to see the red flag a little bit long. But the kids here tonight are the photo and film class that was at Central. And the teacher quit last year, couldn't come back. And they wanted to stay together, so they formed a club. And we have 3 people that helped them set up tonight. Rich Shockey, I forget the fellow's name, was Chantel, right here in the flannel shirt, and Tim Taylor. These are the kind of things that make a community. These kids wanted to keep doing this. These volunteers helped them set up. We got to be able to fund different things within our communities, within our schools. It's going to take work to make sure we're doing the right things with our tax dollars. And this is what I want to go and be able to work on to make sure that Shenandoah County, if we have a mandate that comes from Richmond, it comes with the funding. So maybe we don't lose a teacher that can help with this organization. We don't have to rely on volunteers to do everything. These are the kind of things that I want to work on in Richmond for our community. Just in short, I feel like we need a smaller, smarter government that's more efficient. It's just plain and simple. We need to protect our royal values and our way of life. And they mean a lot to us here, and I think I represent them very well. We need to know someone that knows this district and knows the people of this district and the dynamic of it, but yet can go to Richmond and work with other politicians across the state to get the results we need. Thank you all for your time. And I hope you vote for me on November the 7th or before.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank Timmy for a really great statement, and I agree with him on our community values. And I think we have a great community, but I'd like to keep it that way. And I think that we have to look at gun safety. I think we have to look at fully funding public education and giving our teachers a raise. Governor Youngkin's budget gave teachers a 2% raise, and I don't think anybody's going to be real happy with that. Our teachers don't get paid enough. They work long hours, and everybody knows that. There's just not enough tax dollars in this particular budget to help that. We have to start, at the state level, we need to start funding programs to make them work. And Governor Youngkin's agenda does not actually fully fund those programs, especially in terms of mental health. Mental health is a huge problem. Mental health is not necessarily the only reason for gun violence, though. I think my opponent has an overwhelmingly positive view of human nature that says everybody can, it's all a mental health issue. No, there's plenty of nasty people out there that just like to shoot guns. And that sort of thing, keeping guns out of the hands of those people is fairly important. And I think when we look at this particular Senate race, we look at our opponents and some of the ugly language they're using, I think we really need to turn down the temperature a little bit. And I think we need to think about the things that make our community great, what makes our country great, and what makes our state great. And those things are patriotism, working together, and paying taxes on time, And it'll help keep your taxes low as well.
Thank you. Let's have one last round of applause for all of our candidates that spoke tonight.
And we had a wonderful moderator too, didn't we?
A couple of other thank yous before we close up for the night. Timmy sort of stole my thunder, but tonight we have the honor of having a film crew here from Central High School. And if you all will all stand up, I know there's one back here behind the curtain. We have, two of you. We have Nathaniel, Connor, Raphael, Corbin, Dakota, Victor, and Tom. And thanks again to Rich Shockey, Tim Taylor, and Hank Zimmerman for continuing the education of these folks. So, thank you. I'd like to send one last thank you to our partners, Farm Bureau of Shenandoah County, Alliance for the Shenandoah Valley, and Shenandoah County Chamber of Commerce. Without their support, events like this don't happen. So thank you to all of our partners. They deserve a round of applause.